were potential 40,000 witnesses to this, and many of them saw or overheard or were approached themselves. He would approach someone and say, "Hi, my name is Ted."
The individual had been overheard saying his name was Ted, so all of a sudden, our suspect had a nickname.
I was brought in to this case after the women went missing at the state park because I was involved then at a national project on rape and violence, and was asked, along with another psychologist for the Seattle Police Department, to do a profile based on evidence we were looking at that point. I thought he was manipulative. I thought he was from the middle, maybe even upper class. I thought that most of his world revolved around women, and he was after a type, but the type is related more to the inexperienced naivete rather than the sexuality or high probability of consensual sexual intercourse. He wasn't looking for consent. He was looking to overcome and overpower these women. We believed his name was Ted. The killer was Ted. That Ted was not a common West Coast name. I had an intern at the time. We both agreed we only knew one Ted, and that was Ted Bundy. And we just went right on with our conversation. That was just not even in our minds, not at all. Just not, didn't twig to it. I'm still carrying that around.
When I first saw the police artist sketch, that's when I said, "Oh my God, that looks like somebody who was in my class. It looks like him, but it can't be him." And my first thought was it was my duty, both to the authorities and to him, to get it cleared up. I called the King County Sheriff's Department because there was a hotline set up, and they were interested in the fact that it had been an abnormal psych course. And they wanted to know more about his behavior in the course and whether he showed any abnormal behavior. And I said, no. And they said, well, did he act really strange? And I said, no, not at all. There was nothing that I could see.
The morning when that front page composite came out, the foreman showed up at work, and he showed me, and I scrutinized that thing and looked from different angles. I couldn't see anybody that I knew. And then about 20 minutes later, and he walked over to Liz, and he dropped that paper in front of her, and Liz turned white. The blood just drained right out of her face.
And he'd underlined the name Ted and said, "Does this look like somebody you know?" And it did. It looked like my Ted. And I just tried to brush it off, but I was really gripped by fear, like there's something wrong here. I looked at it over and over and over again, and when I got home, I started going through my photo albums and pulled out a picture of Ted that looked very similar, like the jawline was the same. I took the picture, went down to my friend and showed her, and we both were kind of stunned by how much it looked like Ted. She said to me, "You don't go with somebody for 4 years and not know what they're about. How could you even think that?" But there are all these coincidences. It's like I couldn't let it go. I also read in the paper that some witnesses from the abduction of Georgianne Hawkins had encountered a man with crutches. I was so shocked. I'd seen crutches in Ted's room. And so it's like, oh no. It was moment by moment having my mind switch around, like, could he be doing these things? It made no sense whatsoever. So she and I called the police anonymously from a telephone booth and asked him, did he have a watch on his right arm? Because Ted wore his watch on his right wrist. And they said, well, nobody's reported that. So we asked them, is the Volkswagen really bronze? Because his car was very dull brown. And they said, yes, it was bronze. So it's like, oh, phew, that's not my Ted then. After I took my friend home, I went over to Ted's house. And we laid on his floor and talked, and he was just Ted. I felt crazy, like, why would I even think this? Because I'd had 4 years with this man. I knew that he wasn't capable of doing these things.
And yet?
Turns out he was.